Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Digital Speakeasy, where you have to stay home. Can't go anywhere else. Just got to stay here. Today, we're going to bring the entertainment to you. So, we're actually going to do more of an educational show today. A little bit of science with our spirits. We're going to tap into two of our senses, smell and taste. We're going to talk about how we bring those two together. But before we do that, I want to take a moment to talk about why we're here today. We've all been affected in some way by the pandemic. Our guests today are from Michigan. They're out of Detroit. So, in Michigan alone, they're at about 64,000 cases and almost 6,000 deaths. So for us here at the Digital Speakeasy, we wanted to kind of see what we could do to help. So we partnered up with the World Central Kitchen. It is headed by world-renowned chef, Jose Andres. So what they've been doing, they've been taking kitchens and turning them into, instead of restaurants, soup kitchens. So they've been feeding people, they've been helping keeping restaurants open and keeping restaurant workers working. So they've been doing what they can to kind of help people in need. So here at the Digital Speakeasy, we are doing a double match. So every dollar that is donated through our link, which the link you will be able to find on our Facebook. We'll also put it in the chat here. It's also on our Instagram. For every dollar that you donate to the World Central Kitchen through our link, our company is actually going to double match it. So $1 turns into $3. So we really mean every dollar does help. So if you have a couple bucks to throw in there, please, I urge you to go to our site and donate a couple bucks. But let's get to some lighter news. Today on the show, we have a special guest, like I said, out of Detroit. Like I said, we're doing a little bit of science today. So I would like to introduce our first guest, Kevin Peterson. So Kevin is the owner of a really cool place in Detroit. It is a perfume place by day and a cocktail bar by night. So Kevin Peterson, welcome to the show.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Thanks for taking the time out here to do this. So I just want to start with a little bit of a background about you. I know you didn't start out doing fragrances and cocktails, but what's your background?
Yeah, it's a little bit all over the place. So I started out in the culinary world in my late teens and early 20s. Went to culinary school, thought I was going to be a chef someday. I eventually got out of that world to go into automotive engineering, which is what brought me to Detroit. So I worked for the big three and various auto companies for actually about a decade. But I always still had that love for the culinary world and just the way different flavors combine and the sensations you can create. And eventually what I wound up doing was using that knowledge from the culinary world to create fragrances. So my wife and I started a scent brand called Sfumato. Grab a bottle here. And we make scents that are all inspired by natural ingredients, mostly from the culinary world. So different herbs, different spices. And then as that brand grew and we wanted to have a store, we built it in such a way that it could convert into a cocktail bar at night. So we've got tables that fold out of the wall, benches that flip out of the wall, display cases that kind of flip around. So from day mode to night mode, the bar does a complete transformation. And then at night we serve drinks that are paired with whatever notes are in the scents that we make.
So let's go back. What does sfumato mean?
That is an Italian word, and it literally means to turn to smoke or to turn to vapor. So when you spray the scent, it turns into vapor, and then you smell it. It's got the same root word as perfume. So perfume means through smoke, and that's a reference to the fact that before different extraction techniques were developed, the way people would often enjoy scents is by throwing them in a fire. So you would throw whatever aromatics onto your cooking fire or campfire. They would burn and release the smells. So I thought it was kind of a cool tie-in that it's got this literal meaning and kind of this tie to the definition of perfume.
I love it. So you're in the automotive world, and then how do you get the idea to put these two together? Like, something happened that made you just want to give it all up and go all in on this idea?
Yeah, a couple things. Probably the key, so I'd been doing scents as a hobby for a number of years, go to my 9 to 5, I'd come home, I'd play with scents. And then the company I was working for had this Shark Tank event. So they said, okay, everybody can propose your ideas, just like the show, we'll select some people and you'll go up in front of all these executives. And then if you're chosen, we will fund you to pursue this idea. So I put this whole proposal together for building an in-car scent system, because I was reading about scents, playing with scents. I was like, okay, it'd be awesome if I could do this all day, every day. Maybe, maybe the company I'm working for will fund me to do this. So I put this whole proposal together. I present my idea, and everybody hates it. They're all like, "You're going to give people headaches. What if someone doesn't like the scent? This is going to cost too much money." But basically, they had paid for all of these resources for me to put a whole business plan and market research and do all this background stuff for my idea. That they had funded that leading up to the Shark Tank. So then everybody crapped on my idea, and then I had this stack of all the documents of how to start the company. So it didn't work out in the sense I had anticipated, but fast forward 5 or 6 years, and it did work out. Now this is what I do all day.
I mean, who wouldn't want a permanent new car smell, though? I mean, isn't that what everybody aims for? Permanent new car smell?
Exactly.
Okay.
Scent of luxury.
So it was the fragrances that got you in. So I know that you've created a scent for me. So I actually gave Kevin one of my products, and he developed a whole scent all around one of our scotches. We passed them out. It was beautiful. The aromatics, I actually would do tastings and I would spray it in the air. And I think it kind of woke everybody up to kind of what they were going to be tasting that night. So what goes into making one of these? Do you just go off of what people are asking, or you're coming up? I know you have a create your own where you actually do it for other people, but I know you have specific fragrances on your website. So how do you kind of pick those flavors?
Yeah, there's sort of a whole field of study that goes into creating scents. So for the scent that I made for you, I was taking a couple inspirations. So for one, I was literally just smelling the product and saying, I was going back and forth. So I have. Oh, actually, I thought we might talk about this. So I brought my whole doctor's case in. Here, I'm going to open this up so you can see what's inside.
You have a
This is my
doctor's
case. I am actually a doctor, but this is my set for doing custom scents. So in here, I've got a few hundred different little bottles of different botanicals. And the idea is that every one of these bottles, of which there are many, started as some kind of plant or some kind of bark, leaf, root, herb, whatever it may be. And somehow those scent molecules were extracted, pulled into a liquid form, and bottled. And, so I have a lot of familiarity with those. I have kind of a routine I do every morning. I wake up and smell different ones and kind of test myself. And what I did when I was coming up with the scent for you was I was going back and forth between the product and saying, okay, I think I get a little bit of a nutmeg note. Okay, I think I get a little bit of a vanilla note, and trying to pull out different things that I was perceiving. But then I was also reading about, what molecules get pulled out of the wood when the spirit sits in the barrel for, 10, 12 years, however long it sits in there. And then I was kind of cross-referencing that with some of the information about the different scents and saying, okay, it looks like nutmeg actually has one of the same notes that comes out of the barrel when the spirit sits in the barrel. So it's got to have a couple drops of nutmeg in there. And so I was kind of approaching it from both sort of the molecule side and just the pure sensory side and saying but does it feel like nutmeg should be in here? Yeah. This feels closer as I add a little bit more nutmeg. So, it is a very artistic process. There's science involved, but ultimately it's not sort of typing it into the computer or putting it through some scanner and saying, okay, this is what it needs to be. It still comes down to the nose.
So your process actually kind of reminds me of like some of our master blenders, like for famous grouse, where they're actually nosing, a couple hundred samples a day, and they're blending all these different processes just off smell. A little bit of taste,
Yeah,
but you can't drink 200 samples. So it's I can
agreed.
kind of see how these two go together. And I'm looking at your jars, and your jars actually reminds me of our nosing jars that we use for a lot of our whiskey
Oh yeah,
tastings. So I use these when we're doing different
probably have
whiskey
the same
tastings.
jar supplier.
What's that?
I said we probably have the same jar supplier.
Yeah. So we actually use these, especially I find them very useful for people that um, are new to whiskey, because when you're new to whiskey and you're getting in, a lot of people just get that really heavy alcohol burn and they can't really get past that. And this kind of helps them train it. And I know that, through smell and taste, if you don't have those two together, you don't get flavor. Can you kind of tell us about that?
Yeah, that's a very interesting distinction. And I think sense of smell is very underappreciated. Everyone kind of lives at least partially through their phone these days. Vision and auditory are very played up. Um, but you don't realize how much your sense of smell you use every time you eat something. And the distinction you made, so taste is what's perceived by taste buds, which are mostly on your tongue. There are other places in your mouth and in your body, but bitter, sour, salty, sweet. So taste is everything that you would perceive if you plugged your nose really tight and drank something, or if you have a bad cold. So it's a very bland. It's like a very sort of flat feeling you get if you plug your nose, and even if you drink something, uh, you know, a cocktail or lemonade or whatever it may be. And then scent comes both from the front of your nose, which is what most people think of. You scratch a lemon a little bit, you release some of the essential oils, you smell it, but you also perceive scent through the back of your throat. So there's a little channel in the back of your throat that leads to those same olfactory receptors. So scent molecules can get to your nose or get to your receptors either through your nose or up the back of your throat. And then your brain basically takes those three signals, front of the nose, back of the nose, and the taste, and it puts them all together to create flavor. So it's interesting that you don't have a flavor sensor. Your brain is actually doing these, it's basically doing the computation to say, okay, I've got this many parts of sweet, I've got this many parts of salt, I've got this much rosemary scent, I've got this much vanilla scent, put them all together. And now that's the overarching thing that you feel, okay, I'm chewing on I don't know, candy cane or something. So yeah, that whole process of the brain computing flavor is very intriguing to me.
It's probably why when they tell us to nose our whiskey to keep our mouth slightly open, right?
Yeah. The weird thing is that even though it could be the same molecules coming either front or back, your brain actually treats them differently. So
Interesting.
your brain can differentiate which direction they're going. Something coming in your nose is basically saying, what's out in my environment? Something coming up the back of your throat, your brain is saying, okay, on one hand, this is my last chance to abort mission. Should that be what needs to be done? Like, if I need to spit this out, I need to know now. Whereas if I'm smelling something out in the air, it's not necessarily, it doesn't require immediate action on my part. So yeah, and I think there's a lot more things that are going to be discovered about how those senses work in the next, couple of years that are going to shed a lot of light on what we do.
Interesting. Well, I wanted to ask you, I know you have a lot of different fragrances. Do you have a favorite one?
I do. My favorite one is called Gravitas, and it is based around coriander, cardamom, and nutmeg.
Hmm.
And the cardamom in particular is kind of a special spice to me. So my parents didn't do a whole lot of cooking growing up. I lived in a small town, didn't, get a lot of like interesting foods, but my grandma was an amazing cook and she would make these Norwegian desserts and a lot of them would be seasoned with cardamom. And then when I went away to college, I had Indian food for the first time when I was about, I don't know, 19 or 20. And I'm eating it and I'm like, this is, well, on the one hand, this is amazing. Holy cow, I did not realize so much flavor could be packed into one dish. But then I was like, but there's something familiar, but I've never even been to an Indian restaurant before. Like, what could it be? And I realized it was cardamom. And so that always has this very nostalgic feeling for me, and scent and emotion are very, very intertwined. So Gravitas is one of the scents that we make and sell, but that's also the one that I always go back to when I'm like, Kevin, today needs to be a good day. You're going to have to wear a little Gravitas today. It's kind of like my secret weapon against bad luck. So
That's a sweet story, though. I mean, I think everybody has that where certain smells always kind of take them back, and that's really what you want when you have people, coming in, they get that experience, right? And I think you guys do a really good job at that. So, I mean, even when I was there, it's a really cool place. If you're ever in Detroit, you got to check it out. But so during the day, you're like you said, you're a fragrance shop, and then 5 o'clock hits and you turn into a cocktail bar. So you kind of put the fragrances away and pull the tables down. How does that work?
yeah, we've got here. Maybe I'll give you a quick grand tour. Things are a little bit in shambles right now, but try to selectively show you things here. So we've got there's my personal library. So there's all the kind of scent and book or scent and cocktail books. Then we've got these display cases that can close down. So normally during the day, this would be open. Let's see, you get a grand view. So our main display case there. And then these can close down. So when we go into cocktail mode, we shut the doors, put all the scents inside the case. Yeah, ignore. Here's our new supply of face masks and hand sanitizer. But in general, the bar can now convert into store mode by
Nice.
either dropping the tables. The tables and the benches are on hinges. So yeah, the whole space is kind of designed to convert between the two modes.
It's an excellent use of space. But I will say that spot in the corner next to the perfume spaces, I feel like that's the best place in the bar, unless you're actually sitting at the bar talking to Kyle or you.
Yeah, it's funny that one always fills up.
It's
People look
cozy.
around and they're like, "Oh, cool." I always wonder if people maybe have like a lot of enemies that they're worried about sneaking up behind them, so they feel very safe with that wall at their back.
Yep, never have the door to your back, right?
Exactly.
Well, let's take this time and let's invite our next guest, Kyle Dupree. Let's have him show us how to make one of your famous scented cocktails.
Yeah,
Right.
sounds good.
Kyle, welcome to the show. What are you going to make for us today?
I'm going to start with the Spirit Guide, which features Old Forester, Columbia Mirror, and
Hear you. I can't hear him. Lacey, tell him to yell.
Oh, so we'll be making the Spirit Guide today, which features the Highland Park Scotch, Columbia Mirror, and Old Forester Bourbon. We also add a little bit of our house-made bitters, the Radiant bitters to add a little bit of flair, and our Sage house-made bitters as well. So let's get started. Let's start by grabbing some of our house cut ice. Grab a little block right here. right. I'll take about 1.5 ounces of Old Forester bourbon. Then we're going to go ahead and add 3/4 ounce of the Combier Mûr, which is a blackberry liqueur. Pretty good, actually. Not too sweet, nice blackberry flavor. All right. Now we're going to add about 1/4 ounce of the Highland Park 12, just a touch for a little bit of smoke and floral notes. Okay, now we're going to add a couple drops of the Radiant Bitters to open it up. And last but not least, you're going to add some sage bitters. Not too much, because you don't want the sage to overpower the rest of the cocktail. Just a touch.
What are the flavors in the Radiant Bitters?
So we actually use about 12 different herbs. Gentian, we use, actually, yeah, there's a lot in there. We had orange, zest, gentian. There is some, I want to say, wow, how did I forget all 12? Yeah, orris root, angelica root. We have cardamom, touch of nutmeg. I want to say well, those to start. If
Sorry.
any more comes to me, no, you're good.
You've
It's
been off
perfectly
for a
fine.
while. We forgive you.
Nah, thank you. I appreciate it. Give me a little room. Now we're going to stir this for a good, I want to say 12 seconds. Some people count the rotations. I just go by 12 seconds. Nice and chilled. Get a little bit of water in there to add a little dilution. And boom. One spirit guide. Now, to finish off the cocktail, going to add, last but not least, a little touch of the Arcanum fragrance. And boom. One spirit guide. I wish somebody was here to drink it, honestly, but I guess it will have to be me. So,
You'll have to describe it to us.
okay, let's do this. Nice. Now the cocktail itself is nice, has a deep bourbon kind of like smoky notes. Right when you first drink it, it rises into a nice blackberry fruity flavor. And right towards the end, you get those radiant bitters to kind of shine through and pop out the rest of the deeper bourbon notes. And you get a touch of sage to hint with the blackberry, just so that it kind of gives this nice, how do I put it? Slight savory flavor to finish the cocktail through. Once you go ahead and smell the Arcanum, take some of those tobacco and myrrh notes and a little deep fruity notes to kind of help accent the cocktail. You do it again.
So do you use the fragrance like you would like a paired food? You go back and
Yes,
forth
you would.
between them?
A lot of the times I recommend that you want to drink the cocktail first, and then you want to smell the fragrance just so you can see how they both differ. Then you want to do them both simultaneously or as best as you can, just so that as you are drinking the cocktail, you can kind of get a feel for how they complement each other. For a lot of people, they'll get different notes come out. A lot of people smell different things first. They have more attachments to certain smells and certain flavors. So a lot of the times people will pull different flavors from out of the cocktail as they smell the fragrance. And as the fragrance, erodes over time, different smells come out and different flavors pop out. So for me, a lot of the times when I drink the Spirit Guide and smell the Arcanum, the blackberry shines through a little bit more heavily, and the tobacco kind of complements the bourbon notes.
Interesting. Well, thanks for making that Thanks for making that cocktail, Kyle. If anybody wants to give Kyle a tip, we have his Venmo in the chat. It is at Kyle Wook 06693. I could not get that right earlier. But shoot him a little
It's
tip.
okay.
I know you guys have a lot of really creative drink names. And I just want to tell everybody on your summer menu, my favorite drink name is called Building an IKEA Desk with My Ex-Landlord Phil, who may also be Satan. I mean, how
That
do you
one
come
is.
up with that?
I got to give the credit for that one to Kevin. That one was pretty interesting. To be honest, we made all the cocktails. We sat down. We figured out how we're going to get everything built. And the next day, he was like, I have names for everything right now. And when I saw that one, I was just like, interesting. Now, how did that come to be? Now, this menu itself, I don't know if you explained it earlier and mentioned it at all, but the theme of this menu is more like dreams, or like how for the last 2 or 3 months, everybody been kind of cooped up in the house and everything doesn't really seem kind of real, but is it real? Who knows? That one is pretty much a play off like a dream he had, or maybe this guy could be Satan. It's just like a dream. Am I really living this right now? But it was pretty interesting when he explained it to me. I think it's kind of funny, actually. No offense to anybody named Phil.
I saw that on the menu and I was like, that is the best drink name, because normally people try to have these really short and cute drink names, and that one really just made me chuckle. But if you ever look at their menu, everything is paired with the scent, like you said, and it actually gives you the alcohol content per drink, which is pretty cool.
Try to make sure everybody can walk home.
Yeah, you can actually track it. Like, I don't really need to see the calories. I don't want to see that, but I do need to know how much alcohol I'm drinking so we can keep it in check.
Thank you again for having me.
Yeah, thank you. We'll bring you back later. I know Kevin and you guys both kind of do the cocktail menu together. What goes into, for both of you guys, what goes into kind of making these cocktails? Do you start with the scent first and build the cocktail next, or do you build the cocktail, vice versa?
A lot of the times for me, I like to take the fragrance first. A lot of the times I start with, I'll take the Arcanum, for example. I'll take it, I'll see the ingredients, I'll spritz it a couple times just to remember what it smells like. And then I'll figure out what ingredients pair best. And then I'll figure out which build of cocktail I would like to attempt before I make this cocktail that pairs with the Arcanum. So for I'll spray like, hey, today I want to try to make a tobacco forward cocktail that kind of has like a fruity note to it. And that's when I'll go ahead and try to pick the ingredients. And if the ingredients match up, if they don't match up, then I'll kind of, rotate, flip it around, see if it works, if it doesn't, and I'll just kind of go from there.
Same for you, Kevin?
Yeah, so the scents stay the same, but then every 3 to 4 months we develop a new menu. And I guess for me, with the engineering background, I have a whole spreadsheet that I refer to. So, I think okay, if on the last menu, the Arcanum had more of a bubbly citrus drink paired with it, this menu, it's got to have something more spirit forward. Maybe next menu, it'll be an egg white drink or something like that. So, we're trying to, it's an interesting challenge to think of the aromatics and some of the scents I smell, and it really sort of says, oh, this should be a more spirit forward sipping drink, when I smell it. But then to re-envision that as something light or bubbly or citrusy, it's an interesting challenge to try to put the same scent profile into different drink formats. So that's been one of the fun challenges.
Yeah.
Well, you're both very creative. And I know, with the time period that we've been in with the whole COVID-19 things, I know you guys have been very creative and innovative in how you guys kind of pivoted during this time. Can you kind of tell us what you guys started doing in order to kind of still make some money during this shutdown?
Yeah, so our big activity for the last couple of months has been cocktail cubes. So let me grab one of them. And these are, it's a little salad dressing cup, nothing too fancy, just 2 ounce And this is everything you need for a cocktail. The citrus juice, syrups, tinctures, even the appropriate amount of dilution. A lot of people don't realize that water is actually a key ingredient in a cocktail. Usually that water comes from the ice that's melting as you shake it or stir it. But what we did was to add the water directly to the cube. So now if you want a craft cocktail at home, all you have to do is open the cube, put that in your shaker, fill this with whatever spirit you want. Mix that, shake your tube, shake it till everything melts, and then you've got a craft cocktail ready to go. Basically, that's it.
So I can buy those from you. It's got the whole cocktail in there. I just have to add my alcohol to it. And
Yeah, maybe I should demo this.
Actually, yeah.
Can I ask how much you guys charge for those?
They're $2 each.
$2?
So
I love it.
We're selling them in sets of 5, and yeah, during the heart of the shutdown, we were just doing a curbside pickup one day a week. Now our store is back open again, so you can order them online and then pick up anytime during our normal store hours, which are noon to 5.
Kevin, your sound was awesome, and now it's not. Did you guys tweak something before to help with the sound?
Let's see. My earbud is maybe.
Okay. I think maybe it locked onto his earbud, and now it's off of yours, so we're hearing you through his.
Okay, let me.
Now that sounds good.
We'll just drop this one. We're good now?
That sounds perfect.
Okay.
So $2, and how long will they last in the fridge for?
I've had some since the beginning of the shutdown, and they're still fine. You know, basically, once everything's frozen, it's in a pretty stable state. So,
Awesome.
yeah, you know, we had a lot of people, so we were doing new flavors every week, and a lot of people were saying like, oh, I'm just buying them all, stockpiling them for the summer, going to take these out on the boat, or, you know, even if you're going camping, you don't want to bring you don't want to be packing a citrus juicer, you know, into the middle of the woods. But
it's such a great idea because you
like
can
this, sure.
you could keep this going through after the shutdown and just still make that an add-on on your menu. You know, hey, if you want to take some of these home, you're headed right home, you know, this is great.
Yeah, actually, the group we had in here on Saturday, one of the guys was like, oh, wait, I wanted to get some cocktail cubes before I left. And then everyone else in the group was like, some what? Some what? And he told them all about it. And then like half the group bought some. So yeah, I turned from, I don't know if the party kept going after they left here, but
oh, that's great.
Could.
I love it. It's
You
such a great
ship
idea.
them not frozen?
We have not messed with shipping them yet. So we kind of like, we've still got them on the website. We've been talking to a manufacturer. We're saying, okay, was this just sort of a shutdown thing, or do we want to scale this up and go kind of all in on this? And now the focus has just been getting the bar open and kind of navigating all of the new regulations. So this is either going to go this way or kind of drop off, and I'm not super sure which way it's going to go at the moment.
so what's in the one that you're holding right now?
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and make one of this. This is the Calm Before the Storm. So it's orange juice, a simple syrup made from a raw sugar, and a cinnamon tincture. And so, you know, I just plop that into my shaker, and then let's just grab, I guess we already got the Old Forester out. So now my little cup is 2 ounces. Just fill the cup.
Don't even need a jigger.
Exactly. When I realized that the cups were the right size, I was like, oh, wow.
That's brilliant. I mean, you might get into trouble. We might steal this. Because this is going to go on YouTube, and it's so good.
So now I don't know if the audio is picking this up, but you can kind of hear the ice chunk flopping around in there. Now I can hear that it's pretty much melted. So let's, oh yeah, and you don't even need a Hawthorne strainer. You don't need a no straining necessary. Now you got your cocktail ready to go, nice and frothy. Make sure there's no poison in here. Safe for consumption. There you go.
That's great.
Wow.
I mean, for somebody like me, I always talk like I'm not going to make all these syrups. I know they're really easy and stuff. I would rather just get one of these and have a beautiful cocktail that I didn't have to go through all that mess of making all the syrups and everything myself.
Well, it's also smart because I know people that are making to go cocktails, but they're putting them in a bottle, but they might not sell through and they feel like, oh my, I have to throw away some stuff. I mean, because the cocktail will go bad after a certain amount of time. I have friends who will give me their cocktails and say, "Hey, man, just take it. I can't do anything with them." So this is such a good alternative to that.
Do you have a bestseller?
Actually, it's probably been the calm before the storm. We either that or our radiant old fashioned. So we did so the same radiant bitters that Kyle put in the spirit guide. So the name here, the radiant, actually refers to a certain class of molecules that enhance smell in a similar way that salt enhances taste. And so we used a lot of ingredients like orris root, angelica root, bay leaf that are high in these radiant molecules. And even if you don't taste a whole lot of them on their own, they sort of amplify the flavor of everything else. And so, yeah, either the orange-based Calm Before the Storm or the Radiant Old Fashioned has probably been our best seller.
Interesting. I'm going to have to get some of those next time I'm up there.
Yeah.
So tell us about now, in Michigan, they're opening the bars back up, but I know you guys have taken a different approach. You're not just opening up, you have a special system. Will you tell us about it?
Yeah, so our bar is quite small. So inside we only seat about 18, but we do have a large patio. But what we decided to do was that rather than risk having lines at the door or groups being too close to each other, we're just doing rolling private parties. So groups of up to 10 book the entire space for 2 hours. And the way they do that is you just buy 20 drinks up front. So 2 drinks per person. That reserves you the space. And I gotta say, it's so much more calm, it almost feels like we're cheating. Because, when in normal bar mode, you don't know, are 10 people gonna show up at the same time? Is it gonna be 2? And then you wait an hour and then 2 more. There's just, in the course of a week, there's kind of some patterns that emerge, but from hour to hour, you don't know who's coming in. But the reservation mode, it's like, all right, Darren and Lynn are coming in at 7:30. Bill's bringing a crew at 10. I know Bill's a whiskey guy. I got all my whiskey set up here. I know that these folks are more into citrusy drinks. So it's been great.
You're doing
Yeah.
2-hour increments?
Yep.
Do you feel like you're making as much money doing that as you would just being open to the public?
I thought we were going to be taking a big hit, but I actually crunched the numbers and we're about where we were. So the weird thing is that Friday and Saturday are down a bit, but Wednesday and Thursday are up a bit. So it basically just kind of did that, and it all kind of evened out.
It's a neat idea too. I mean, you're very innovative. Restaurants, like some of the best restaurants in the world, never take walk-ins, right? So they know exactly how many people they need to feed and what each person is going to cost per night. So there's very little waste, but they also are guaranteed, that seat and that money that night. And they could plan months in advance that way, especially if it's like a prefix menu at a very fancy restaurant. Would it be beneficial to consider moving to that sort of format, once everything opens up?
I think so. I've actually been giving a lot of thought to issues in the restaurant world that have been brought to light through the shutdown. And just as you said, if if you don't know if you're going to be serving 50 meals or 100 meals in a given night, you kind of have to prep for 100. But if only 50 people show up, and spirits don't go bad, but yeah, if you're buying a bunch of fresh ingredients and you're trying to keep it local, yeah, that's a huge problem in the restaurant industry. And having a little more control over that, and especially given the social distancing measures, one of the big advantages we see with this mode is that guests can come in. They don't have to see anybody that's not in their group, except for me and Kyle. I've been to restaurants and it's like, oh, that person's sitting a little too close. They're, and you're like,
I think we've all experienced
it's not the feeling. It's not the feeling you want to have when you go out to eat, is like constant vigilance and paranoia. It's like you go out to eat to enjoy the meal, to chill out. And so this, I think, allows people to sort of have that feeling.
It's a neat thing to have as an option, because of course a lot of people go to bars to meet people that they didn't know. Right. But I agree with you. I'm certainly at a place in my life where, I know enough people. I'm okay, and I hate, getting rubbed up against. But I mean, if you're just, it's such a neat idea. And just as far as it being more efficient, you might save money in other places that you didn't necessarily know because you'd have less waste.
Yeah, what you just mentioned, the idea of meeting strangers, if you look back at some of our Instagram posts, or whatever, a lot of our marketing materials from a year ago, that was a huge feature. Yeah, come on in, meet interesting people, like small intimate bar, oh, you're into rum, you guys should talk. And that was one of my favorite things about being a bartender, was seeing those connections happen, seeing people become friends. So it's now very strange to say, this used to be something that we sold as a feature, and now the fact that you don't have to see strangers is something we sell as a feature. So it's causing me some cognitive dissonance to be like, yeah, it's like drinking at home, except I'm making your drinks. It's a weird sort of mental shift that I'm making.
Sure. I could imagine that it would be different, but it's very adaptable and wise for you as a businessman as well, to keep your business going and sort of emphasize whatever strength you need to emphasize at that particular time. So good for you.
Yeah.
It's that, and I love the idea that, you're incorporating this olfactory sensory thing, along with it. I know people that have dabbled in it, but I don't know anybody that's gone as far as you seem to have gone with it.
Yeah, it's an interesting hobby, but there's not a lot of resources out there that are super accessible. The major perfume companies don't really have a vested interest in making a lot of this knowledge public. So a lot of it has been me buying weird books, going to bookstores and sort of digging through weird like stacks in the back and sort of reading these weird dusty tomes. And but yeah, it's been fun. And I think being able to link it to both the cocktail world and the food world makes it a lot more real and relevant for me, and I think for a lot of people.
Detroit's a cool town. Yeah. Go ahead, Lacey.
I was going to say, Kevin, I know on social media a couple weeks ago or so, you had talked about you possibly writing a book. Are you still thinking about doing that?
I have been writing a book. Yeah, it's it actually ties back to some of our conversations at the beginning of the webinar of what happens in the brain when you perceive scent, when you perceive taste. So the idea is there's a critical moment. So right now the cocktail is in its physical form. It's in a glass, it's sitting here, I can see it, I can smell it. And then there's a moment where you sip it. And in that moment, your senses pick it up and it turns into this sort of mental representation of the cocktail. This many parts sweet, this many parts sour, this much cinnamon, this much bourbon, whatever. And if you can follow that path through the brain and say, well, how does the lighting affect my perception? How does the music affect my perception? How do the people that I'm talking with affect the perception? Like how does sipping that cocktail eventually branch out into a whole cocktail experience? And if you can understand that process, then you can go backwards and say, well, knowing how taste and scent work and knowing how music and lighting affect it, what lighting should I choose? How much juice should I add? What spirit is the appropriate one for this drink? So it's kind of like there's this moment, and then the information goes out into your brain. And if you know that path, you can go backwards in time and say, how should I set up my bar? How should I create my drinks and my menu? So still a work in progress, but I will keep you posted.
Did you end up settling on the name?
Oh man, I was really tied to engineering the perfect cocktail, but no one else seems to have a very high opinion of engineering. I don't know. I mean, like everyone's notion of engineering pretty much comes from Dilbert and like nerdly kind of corporate bureaucratic things. I see more beauty in it, but it's unlikely that I'm going to convince everyone out there that you know, it's a complex and nuanced thing, just so that they can buy my book. So undecided at the moment.
I love it. Well, do you or Kyle have one more cocktail for us tonight?
Yeah, I think Kyle's gonna do one more. Let's see if we can.
I hope it includes that giant lemon.
That is a big lemon.
That is a pretty big lemon. Can y'all hear me?
Yep.
All right, nice. I am going to move a little bit of these things out the way, just to give myself a little more space. All right, let's do it. So for the next cocktail, we will be making the blue pill, which if you couldn't already tell, it was a reference to the Matrix and weird reality shifting. Let's cut this right here real quick, just to save some time. Bam. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and grab my shaker. And let's get started. The primary spirit in the blue pill is actually the California citrus vodka from St. George. It's actually pretty tight. I'm not really a fan of most citrus vodkas, but this is pretty tight. All right. We'll do about 1.5 ounces of that. Now we're gonna go ahead and switch over to the Bitter Truth Violet Liqueur. The thing about violet liqueurs is a lot of times you can overdo it, but seems like we found the right balance for this one. We're gonna do 1/2 ounce of that. And switch over to the Domaine de Canton Ginger Liqueur. We're gonna do another 1/2 ounce of this as well. All right, gonna grab a little Dolan Blanc. We're only gonna use 1/4 ounce of that, just a splash. And now we're gonna use 1/2 ounce of the sweet simple syrup made from the raw sugar. Now, time to go ahead and get this lemon juice. You need about 1/2 ounce of lemon juice, which is approximately about 1/2 of a lemon. I'm gonna add a little ice. All right, and then we're gonna shake well for about 12 seconds just to make sure everything gets to the proper temperature and max dilution. So let's go. right. Now, unlike the last cocktail, for this one, you actually do need to grab a strainer, a couple of them, just to make sure that we get all the ice chips out and everything is as smooth as it could possibly be.
I love the color.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, no, the color is really, really nice. Actually, I really like the violet liqueur. Simply, one of the biggest reasons is because it just makes cocktails look so pretty. And presentation is key for a lot of things. If you can make somebody believe it's going to be good, even just off of looking at it, they're never going to complain about it. So now, last but not least, going to grab the Epiphany fragrance that goes along with this. All right. Spritz.
Now, what's that
Voila.
fragrance like?
So this one it's really light, kind of floral, nice and green. Very, very fresh fragrance. Actually reminds me a lot of kind of just the end of spring, beginning of summer smell. You ever walk outside and kind of like smell the air before school when you were like 12? That's what it reminds me of. It's like, man, it's going to be a good day. Let's hope it's a half day.
I love these descriptions.
I don't know if Kevin actually touched on it earlier, but scent is tied really closely to memory. So a lot of these things, when I smell these fragrances, they remind me a lot of things or places or people even. My favorite fragrance is the Arcanum. So a lot of the times when I smell it, it reminds me of my granddad. He used to smoke a pipe all the time. We used to play pool in the basement. He just smoke a cigar, smoke a pipe. And every time I smell the Arcanum, that's the first person I think of. That's the first thing I think of. So let's do it. Nice. All right. Now this cocktail itself is more citrusy, a little more floral, pretty light, really easy to drink. Actually, sometimes I feel like it might be too easy to drink. Get in trouble in the summertime drinking a bunch of blue pills, but it's really good. Now, feel free to come down. If you have any questions, just let me know. Okay, Jimmy?
Oh, yeah.
All right, cool.
And how much alcohol is in that one? I know you guys have your alcohol splits on it, but if it's that good, do I need to be careful when I'm drinking it?
This was a little easier. This is like a 1.5. So, you know, you can probably have a few of these without being too worried. The Spirit Guide is like a 1.7. So that one's a little more dangerous.
Awesome. Well, thanks for making that. It looks beautiful. I love the glassware as well. And
Oh,
again,
you're
if
very
you're out
welcome.
there, you want to shoot Kyle a tip, his Venmo's in the chat. Kevin, are you there?
I'm here somewhere.
Come on, Kev.
Well, we're about at that time in the show, so I just want to thank you both for coming on, teaching us a little bit about the science behind it and the sensory experience that you guys can have at your spot. If anybody wants to check them out, you can go to their website. It's fumatofragrances.com or Castelia Cocktails. Both websites are actually linked together. Look out for Kevin's book that should be coming maybe later this year. Who knows? And again, thanks you guys for coming on the show. And one more time, again, this is a fundraiser, so please go to our link tree, throw a couple bucks to World Central Kitchen. Again, we're double matching every dollar donated. We're trying to get to $50,000 in the next 6 months. That'll be a $150,000 donation for World Central Kitchen. So every dollar counts. Thanks again, gentlemen, for taking time out of your day to be on our show. And hopefully we'll see you all soon. And we'll see you tomorrow on the Digital Speakeasy. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.
Thanks,
Goodbye.
Lacey.
Bye.
Thanks, y'all.